Hi, everyone. This is Prasha, and I'm so excited today to celebrate Pride Month with a dear colleague of mine, Caitlin Hirschler. Pride Month is a very significant month to support the LGBTQ communities and to get educated on this very important topic. Plus, how can we be more inclusive towards people who have different life choices than us? Maybe they have a different lifestyle than us, and this is a way to start that conversation. And I'm so excited to have someone super special like Caitlin with us. So let's get started and get to know Caitlin, her STEM story, and how we can be more inclusive towards the LGBTQ community in STEM and beyond. Hi there, this is Prasha Dutra, and I'm passionate about helping you unlock your true potential in your science, technology, engineering, and mathematics career and beyond. Less than a decade ago, I moved to the US from India to live my American dream. I took my engineering career to the next level by starting my own consulting and coaching company while thriving at my 9-to-5 job. Money, time management, career planning, and personal growth are all things we'll discuss here. From expert guests and their stories to my own lessons, this show is an ongoing masterclass in how to believe in your brilliance and conquer your STEM career with confidence. Get a pen and paper and get ready for an education you wish you had in school. This is Her STEM Story, the podcast. Hi, Caitlin.
Hi, Prasha. Thanks for having me on.
I'm so excited, and thanks for taking the time. I know this is a busy season of your life and a lot of moving parts. But before we get there, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I'll give my background a little bit. So I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia. I went to school at Georgia Tech and graduated with a degree in material science and engineering. I bounced around for a few years and landed at Prysmian Group in September. And so I've been working in that space in rubber ever since, and I've really, really enjoyed it. Personal life, food is one of my biggest passions, and I am a big creative, so I'll always be knitting or painting or just doing something with my hands.
Oh, that's awesome. And you're so vocal and an advocate for the LGBTQ community. So, if you don't mind sharing with us a little bit about your own journey of coming out and then also the problems that you may have faced in the process.
Yeah, so to kickstart that off with, I use she, they pronouns. So that's just, for the audience, and no need to get nervous about that, audience. I like them to be used interchangeably. So, you don't have to worry about choosing between one. But so I came out initially to my friend group my freshman year of college. I came out as bi initially, and then over the next few years, I eventually decided I was more comfortable using the term lesbian and queer to identify with. And I think that's something that is not fun, or I don't have a good adjective, but in the LGBT community, people are always growing and changing. And that's something that it just comes with being part of the community. It's an ever-growing, ever-changing community. Everyone's story is different. So I was co-oping for an engineering company in Georgia while I was in college, and that was around the time when I was coming out. So Atlanta is a pretty progressive city, but south of the city is a little bit more conservative, a lot of more old-fashioned values that you kind of associate with the South more times. So I kind of made a drastic change in just my physical appearance around that time, just to kind of be more comfortable in my own body. I used to have waist-length hair and cut it off to about this length. And I think some people, they're like, oh, who would comment on a change like that? But I actually had a lot of people coming up to me at that factory who I didn't know, being like, what happened to all your long, pretty hair? I liked you better without it. Like, now you're no fun to look at. So, that's a, feminism issue. And like, they weren't comfortable with me kind of changing my appearance to be more comfortable in my queer identity. But something that really helped me while I was in that job, in that company, was I had a queer mentor at the company. It was an older gay man who just became just this great resource on learning how to kind of absorb these comments and not let them affect me, and then in what ways I could speak out and kind of educate people and just have support, like, somewhere I could just go, close the door, and be like, okay, like, I need to reset. And that's been a great experience. And recently I've brought him on to a LGBT panel that I did at my day job. So we've kept in contact all these years, and he's still helping me do queer things today.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And, thanks for sharing that story, because I know there's so much, it takes so much strength and bravery to like really own who you are. And I think this is another reason why so many people are uncomfortable around the LGBTQ, the topic, but also the LGBTQ communities, because the LGBTQ community, for the most part, has embraced, their themselves way more than the rest of the world, right? Like, we're all trying to fit in a mold, and we're working so hard and trying to do that. And when we see somebody being so open and exuberant and like really owning their self, and even through all these challenges still trying to be themselves, I think that's what hurts people. And I think that's where a lot of hate comes from, is that I can't be myself, right? Because they are so stuck in that mold. And I think instead of taking it that way and be like, I can learn so much from the LGBTQ community, and I can also embrace my imperfections and things that make me unique, they really take it in a wrong way, right? Like they decide to like not process that. Like, why is it problematic? Is because it's hurting something that, they have something that you want, which is to be more bold, to be more outgoing, to embrace those things about you that society doesn't agree to, right?
Yeah, I think you make a really great point, and something that I've seen. And of course, everyone has their own struggles with confidence and identity and all that. But in the queer community, unlike the cis hetero community that's kind of like the everyday, some people don't have the option to not look queer. Like, their queerness is displayed out for everyone to see. So if they're not confident, if they weren't forced to have that confidence, life would be really, really hard. And, I'm lucky. I can look visibly queer if I really, do myself up, but I'm a tiny cis, mostly, little white girl. So it's easier for me to kind of slip under the radar, but people feel threatened when people are 100% comfortable with themselves. And they take their comfort as a threat to them. If this person's comfortable doing that, like, what does that say about me?
Exactly. You put it way better than I did. So that's wonderful. That's exactly what I want to say, is that the people who are violent or nasty or have, these kind of opinions that are, not kind, I feel like they have a lot of soul searching to do, right? It's just something that is missing in them that's making them do these things. And, it's kind of very, very sad that you would choose to live like that and not do anything about it. With that being said, growing up in the South and then having to break that mold, like, how was that like? Because we hear all these stories about, the South being this really bad place to live in for minorities. But what was your biggest challenge there and how would you say somebody who's trying to break that mold, where can they start, and is there hope for them?
First, I want to start off by saying the myth that the South is one. There are just ingrained issues in the South that do affect queer communities, minority communities, but also, a lot of Northerners kind of write off the South, like, oh, I want to, cut off Texas. I even say about Florida, don't like the sun in the sand, but these communities are so rich with queer and minority communities. I mean, we can see in Atlanta, in Dallas, in other parts of the South. I mean, even in Arizona, I mean, you have the large Native American community. But going back to your question, I grew up in a upper middle class area of Georgia. It was kind of white picket fence America. We weren't like radically religious. that was something that was important to the people of my community. It was something that I always struggled with, is my faith, and so that was all mixed up in that as well. So it's kind of confusing. But it was kind of like don't ask, don't tell, an untold secret. No one really talked about people being queer. It wasn't actively demonized, but it was that dirty secret that no one really talked about. I can remember things like, now that I'm out and kind of understand my self better, I can look back and be like, oh, that was, I repressed that feeling. Like, and you look at your friends and you're like, oh, like, I feel weird. Is that butterflies, or is it just like, what is that? And you can't really identify that feeling, even though you felt attraction before, but it's so different. I guess it's viewed as not an option. I guess that's something that for me was the biggest thing. It just was never an option. There was never even a chance that I could be queer. There was, that just didn't happen. It took until someone asking me like, oh, wait, do you like women? After I had been complimenting this girl, like I'd been like, oh, she's so cute, like da 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 da. And my friend was like, wait, do you like women? And I was just mind blown. It's literally, that's all it took for me to kind of accept myself and understand my attraction to women, because I was like, wait, oh yes, like there's so much that, I just got told like, no, you're attracted to men. This is what we do. You're going to get married. You're going to have kids. Like you're going to go live your home. Like you're going to go to college. So it's hard to kind of grow up in an area that it's not really talked about. And something that I've seen so much in areas that I've grown up in and in college is a lot of my friends have come out as queer. And not saying like, oh, every person I was friends with in high school is queer now, but it's so exciting for me to see that so many people were able to kind of break out of that. That's not an option for me. And be able to be happy with whoever they like and, whoever they want to be. And, that's something that I've really been enjoying this Pride Month, is going on Instagram and seeing my friends that, have had the ability to come out and be themselves more.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think what happens is again, just like we stereotype minorities, we stereotype states and their cultures and, oh, everybody must be like that. I remember somebody asking me early on, was like, oh, do you know this Indian person at work? And I was like, wait, like, I hope we're like 1.3 billion. Like, it's like not possible. It's like, do you know that American from, whatever. So anyways, I think we do stereotype a lot of those things that we are not aware of. And, South does have that name. And I think you're right. Like, I feel like when you have blatant discrimination, it's easier to fight it. I'm not saying it's easy. It's a better thing. It's just easier to pinpoint and fight and stand up against. I think the biggest problem with America is that a lot of this stuff is so subtle and so ingrained and so like deep-seated in just the way the society is shaped, that it's harder to fight. In India, I can go and do a march around, women's safety, things like that, which is like blatantly, it's not happening, right? Like blatantly, there's patriarchy everywhere. In America, you can't do that. Everyone's super nice to your face. And then, subtly there are like comments and microaggressions and things like that. So, so that's just harder to fight. And yes, when that's ingrained in us, it's such a difficult reality to be like, hey, that's possible for me. And I'm glad you found out and you were able to like embrace that, because, that makes you unique. That makes you special, gives you a different perspective. And, that's what we need in STEM, right? Like that's exactly what we need in these fields where we are trying to create a different future, different world. And how will we do it if we all think same way? We all are closed off to these possibilities, like, really just closed off to what's possible. And I think that's what you see in a lot of the American societies, is they're so closed off to this, even this possibility that a foreigner can come to in America and like live a life. Like it's just so difficult for them to like, even though 2 generations ago they were also immigrants. So it's kind of interesting that that's the case for a lot of societies, and it's harder to even like comprehend. And I'm sure you must have had to overcome a lot of family things and trying to just get through that time while going to one of the most competitive engineering schools in the country. So
it was an interesting process, because it was easier for me coming out to friends, because at that point, I had the kind of personality that's like, you know what, I'm not even surprised anymore. Like, I was lucky to have such great friends. But I did actually end up losing friendships like over the course of college. Like, I had some people that, I was really close with before I came out, and eventually they unfortunately, due to their own kind of bigotry, they, I don't want to keep friends that think I'm going to hell, is kind of what it is. That's toxic for me. I really don't believe in the hate the sin, love the sinner. I think that is extremely problematic. But that could be a different topic, but that's a lot of what I experienced in college. It's hate the sin, love the sinner. And that's just not something I can reconcile with. Take me as I am, or don't take me at all.
Yeah. No, I think it's again, sometimes it's a choice to be confident, but then, as you said, but sometimes there's no choice. I mean, you have to make that, you're forced to make that choice and move on and live your life in the bold way that you want to, because there's only so much you can do to convince other people around you. You have to move on. So kudos on that. And I think another thing I would like to point out here is that when people go through these life situations, I'm sure you would agree that you collected a lot of life skills. You collected a lot of, this resilient muscle, this working under pressure, this, all these skills, right, that we need in STEM professions. And I think when you go through these things, you gain all those life skills that makes you an even better, contributor, and a better engineer, right?
110%. I think something that's come out of a lot of the struggles I've experienced in my life is just, I have a great ability to work with people. I'm really good at kind of picking up on a situation and kind of anticipating how someone will feel. And not in a too much kind of way, because obviously if you take that too far, that's another problem in itself. But using it as a skill, kind of being able to work with people has been my biggest trait as an engineer that I've seen led me to be successful throughout all of my jobs. When I went to Georgia Tech, we had all a very similar, I guess, personality. And which is hard to say because everyone's personality is different, but we're all extremely driven people. We're all there for the same reason. So it's different then you go into a company and everyone's there for a different reason, right. And that causes sometimes friction in the workplace. And, that's the greatest skill that I've been able to drag in, is being able to work with people, figuring out how to work with them and making that work, even if it's not my usual communication style. How that works best with someone else is what I'm going to do. They get work done and stuff. You're not in your personal life. I can't just say no.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. No, I think this is the beauty of having a diverse team, having people from different life experiences, and really embracing that, because that's exactly what we need. We're stuck with the same old problems across the industries, across STEM. We're inefficient. We are unempathetic. We are unemotional. We're so rigid. And, that's going to cost us in business dollars eventually. And we're seeing that with sustainability efforts and things like that now that everything is getting connected to business, everybody's freaking out. Like, it has to happen, right? Like, every industry is rethinking their business models. It's great. It's great that we now are finally connecting the dots and have that business case to support these kind of efforts. With that being said, what does pride signify to you? What does it mean to you? And then, of course, how can we all celebrate it better? As in, let's talk about it in an industry term, and then we'll come to how we can celebrate it as individuals too.
Okay. I'll answer what pride means to me as a general question, and then what we can do is a more industry focus. For me, pride is a time of the year to celebrate the queer identity. We are lucky to live in a time where we can be open without fear of jail time, which is a very real reality of a lot of queer elders. I had a lot, I would rephrase that. I don't have a lot of queer elders because of other issues, but the people that I have talked to, they remember that. They remember it being like, illegal to be gay in America within our lifetime. Not mine, but people's lifetime who are still living. I was like, get me back on topic, Prasha. I was like, that one little thing kind of got me off topic there.
No worries. No, we were talking about what does pride mean to you.
Thank you. So it's that time of the year to like really kind of like celebrate how we got here. Taking a look at like where we have to go. Like right now, trans issues, that's something that is huge. That's something that could really, people could take Pride Month and be like, all right, let's take a look at trans issues. And that's what we're going to work on for the next year. It brings visibility to a lot of issues, and it's just a time to be fun. It's a time to celebrate and just be yourself and celebrate with your friends. But anyway, that was a little bit of a tangent, but for work, ways to celebrate, I think in terms of corporate, I think celebrate is a poor choice of words, I should say. Corporate industry should be doing work during Pride Month. Your queer employees should be celebrating, and you should celebrate them. Small things are always awesome, like a pride flag at headquarters, or visibility things. But during Pride Month, I think corporations to make the greatest impact is actually doing things. We had just been talking about how sustainability and looking outside just the business dollars are going to be how we need to run business in the future. And I 100% agree with this. One of the parts of that is looking to see what that company supports, because that's the only way that real change is going to be made. It's all about money, unfortunately. So it's where the dollars are coming from is how we're going to make changes. So, businesses have to actually be taking a stand. So businesses could do things like signing a petition against an anti-trans bill. Something so simple, but your name being on it is like, wow, this company's dollars are behind that issue. If we're anti-trans, we're transphobic, we won't get their business. That's an example. Or taking this as a good time to look at your policies. Are your protections in place for people? Is there an easy way for trans people to transition in your business? Do you have a kind of like a handbook for them? So I think for industries, it's time to do the work this month. It's not just about changing your logo. And that's what a lot of, queer people get angry about is the rainbow washing. So they see a really simple example, consumer goods, companies, they nothing all year round. And then, Pride hits and it's, rainbow shoes. For me, I'm a sucker for rainbow capitalism. So I will, I love them. I will go out and buy them. But, if they're just slapping a rainbow on it and selling it and making money for themselves, are you really supporting your queer employees? At least donate a portion of that money to like the Trevor Project or, something like that. So I think that's my summary. Actually do work and just don't get stuck in we're just starting at this, so we'll just do lip service. Right. I think a lot of people are scared to kind of dive in and do the work. And so they get stuck at the lip service, and it's hard to push past that because it's comfortable.
Right. No, I agree 100%. I think it's also kind of catch-22, right? Because, for example, I'll say it from an industry standpoint, I feel like if you don't have a diverse enough network of employees and stakeholders and family members and like your entire universe is composed of these same people, and now you are asked, quote unquote asked, to support this different vision or different perspective, I feel like you may not be cubed to support it. And I think that's where education comes in. And I don't think that a lot of people understand that I need to get educated before I help anybody. And I think we jump the gun, we take a misstep and we just jump to action because everybody's rewarded for action. So let's keep doing action. And then it becomes like an affirmative action and not so much like a powerful, impactful way of, growing with the community. And I think you would see like if there are people like you in organizations, if there are people like me in organizations, there are minorities in your organization, and you have a little bit freedom for them to do and say things that they want to say, hopefully you do a more intentional job at it, right? Otherwise, again, it just shows me that you have either you have nobody in your organization that's saying, guys, you shouldn't do it. Or two, if they are there, they're not allowed to speak up. Right? They're not allowed to contribute or say their mind. And I think again, if you're not diverse enough, how will you be inclusive? If you're not inclusive enough, how will you be diverse? It's kind of like a catch-22. But you're absolutely right. I think in the last 5 years, especially with the Pride Month, there's been so much of this marketing dollars attached to it that we're going to do it this way. And then, of course, the intention is kind of lost, right? Like nobody knows what to do during Pride. Everybody's struggling and trying to understand. One thing that I would also like to ask you is, so for example, I think this is another place where people are sort of maybe still nervous. I mean, I did Pride Month series 2 years ago, and I can't believe we're still talking about it just like we were 2 years ago. Like it hasn't changed a lot, but now more eyes on it for sure from an ESG standpoint, right? And it's a different world post COVID and post Black Lives Matter. So, how would you say we deal with whether you do it, you're doomed. You don't do it, you're doomed, right? So that particular instance is very much so true for me as well. Is that okay, if I do something, then I risk being called like, oh, you're just doing it for Pride Month. But then I sincerely want to do it. And then I do a lot of other things throughout the year. How do I package it in a way that it's not, and again, not to just do it, but really, how do I package my intention so that the intention is seen and I don't risk being called out, right? Because again, we all have that fear, especially people who are putting themselves out there. Right? Companies, brands, people like myself putting themselves out there. I think we're always worried about that one thing that because I don't belong to this particular group of people, how am I the right person to advocate? Plus, how do I show that I sincerely mean it?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest challenges that is encountered in this situation is you're not going to please everyone. There are going to be people who will be pissed off. You're not going far enough, like no matter what you do. I'm going to be a little vague about this, but recently I've seen an example where a company partnered with a queer maker. They produced a product for Pride, and a portion of those proceeds, sorry, I was like, what word is that? Is going to the Trevor Project. So, there's intention behind it that, you can see the queer maker is supporting it, is helping direct it. Portion of the money is going to the Pride Project, but there was a large group of people angry about it not being inclusive of other minorities, of, other issues. And, this company's doing this great thing, but they're getting shot, at the same time for doing it. This is something that I struggle with at the same time to figure out how to remedy. How do we push companies to go further while at the same time not like lambasting them? Because they're not going to continue if they get lambasted. Like that's not productive and not helpful. But at the same time, how can we push them to go a little bit further every time? So I think I'm in the same spot as you. Is what's the best solution to this? I am only part of one minority. I am, like I said, mostly cis, white, young. I'm visually not disabled. So there's so many parts of the intersectionality of queerness that I can't speak to.
Right.
I think that's challenging, is no one has the right answer. And especially now how inflammatory everything is. It's hard.
Yeah,
you're gonna make missteps along the way.
Right. I think the way I have made my peace with it is, and this is true for even Black Lives Matter and even Indigenous rights and immigrant rights and all the different minorities and intersectionalities. I think the way I've made peace with it is, again, same thing like you said, you can't make everybody happy, and if you're wrong, if somebody points it out, then really having a conversation instead of like both parties. I mean, this is true for both parties, right? You can't have cancel culture. You can't have, oh my God, you can't put people in boxes. And like you said in the beginning, like being queer is all about being fluid and, changing and accepting that change. And I think the reality of it all is that we're all always changing. I don't think I am the person I was a year ago. I don't think you were the person you were a year ago. So we're all always changing. Some people are changing on a different level, and then others are changing maybe from a personality or just a life situation standpoint. And so we got to give everybody a chance. And, yes, some people may not be our people, and we can stop following them, buying things from them. But we should give people a chance. I think that's the scary part here, is if we keep going down this path of righteousness, where this is right, that's wrong, and we're not open to dialogue, then the problem is, as you said, the companies will stop doing things. People will be afraid. Really, the purpose will not get solved. Like, we want people to have a conversation and disagree and have a dialogue. And even if it's something where you're trying to understand, it's not going to be nice and pretty, and the way I've made peace with it is I'm going to make mistakes, and it's okay. Like, I'll learn from them, and hopefully I will not make the same mistakes again. I'll make new ones. But if I'm learning, I hope I'm making mistakes, because that's how I would know that I'm learning something. I'm putting myself out there, right? And I think a lot of people are so afraid to just fail in general. They are closing, and they're not having the conversation and creating more echo chambers, which is not helping anybody, right?
I definitely agree with everything that you just said. It's really hard. It's just a topic, because I see the battle in so many different ways, because as a creator, it's like, how can I keep up? How is this possible?
Right.
And then at the same time, I know that you as a creator are so open to hearing that you're wrong, and making corrections and learning. But I think one of an issue is that there are people who aren't, and that is kind of it. They don't like being attacked, but at the same time, they're not responding in a way that's open. They're responding by closing off, which, I mean, if they're being attacked, is understandable, but we kind of all need to adjust our way of reacting to things, I think, is going to be the solution.
I think it's so important to just finally go back to being humans again. I mean, who really, like, it doesn't even matter, right? Like, I mean, I think we're so focused, and this is something I see a lot in America versus where I come from. And I know we're very behind in LGBTQ rights. And that's, again, a concept that was always there in the Indian culture, and then kind of washed away by colonization and, the British living there for 300 years. If you go back to, the stories we always had, like, even in our folklores and mythology, there was always a transgender or a eunuch or different things, like, people with different identities, and it was okay, and they were treated, even in certain cultures, they were treated special, like they were special people, they were God's people, like, right? They even today there is a ritual where you will, if a baby's born, like they come and they dance and they bless the baby, and it's such a, like, it's a celebration of them. Of course, I'm not saying that they're not oppressed. They are oppressed. There is a lot of problems, like people need to take care of that. But that's all colonized, is post-colonization, post the British Raj, which we call. And so I think what we have forgotten in this whole debate is that we are just focusing on the differences, and now we're trying to make sense of the differences. Why is Caitlin like this? Why? Like, that just, it doesn't matter, right? It's about embracing that, she has a different way of looking at life, and I'm okay with it. It doesn't threaten my way of looking at life. Like, life is so rich that we can all choose to look at it the way we want. We can choose to love who we want. And I think that's just something that we need to, like, find our way back to, is that humanity, that coexistence, that there can be a world where I can be my full self and you can be yours. And maybe that looks the same, and maybe that looks different. And that's totally fine too. Right? Like, you don't have to like everything I like, and I don't have to like everything you like. And I think if we can just go to that place of coexistence, that it's okay. And, as humans, we should support each other. I hope we can find our way back to that.
I agree. I think there's a lot of just people not understanding each other and not willing to put in the effort to understand each other, is what it boils down to.
Right. And I think that's really sad in America. I'm shocked at how bad it is here versus where we come from. And I think we were talking about this the other day at work. But if you go to countries like India, you see the country is chaos. right? It's total chaos. And everything is chaos. Like there's no structure to the way we build our houses, to the way we commute, to the way we eat, to the way we look. There is just random chaos. Like people wear all kinds of colors, and it's just craziness, like religions and people and cultures. And then you come to America and it's so prim and proper, and everything has been tried to put in this structure. And now you try to break that structure, and the entire country like freaks out, right? So I feel like it's in the fiber of this country.
Yeah, I was like, this is a silly example, but just a side note, I love YouTube and I love musicals. I got caught up in a movie that had come out on Disney Channel in the past few years called Zombies, and it's just pretty much a whole metaphor for this. It's the one side of it is prim and proper, and then the other side of it is something that's different. And the prim and proper, just they can't change, they don't want to change, and we see these stories repeated through time, I think, and I think I hope that we're on a cusp of change. I think we're at a point where people are starting to realize the way we've done things for the past couple of 100 years isn't necessarily how we have to do things. I mean, we quite literally, our modern society has only been established for about 300 years, and that's been pretty much all of our ideas that run society. It's only 300 years, and how long have humans been around? A long time. So I think there's a lot of room for growth. I'm very much the progressive, we can always change instead of like, we should go back to behaving how we did in BC 3000. But still a lot of room for growth.
And I think every society, every generation has their struggles, and it's such a cyclical, how they say history repeats itself. It's very cyclical in nature, and of course, we can talk about that all day. With that being said, I know you are also struggling with an autoimmune disease, and then still pushing through at your career, and then also advocating for the LGBTQ community outside and inside of work. So tell us a little bit about that part of your life where you are struggling with an acute disease, and how are you sort of managing it? Plus, what is something that other people can do where they might be going through a phase like this? What are your tips to them to either manage their disease or like manage their career in general?
Yeah, so there is so much tied up into this. So I'll just give a brief overview so everyone kind of understands what I'm going through. So about 4 years ago, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, which is an autoimmune disease that attacks my large intestine, very comparable to Crohn's, if you're familiar with that. That was the 2 years before I graduated college. So, I was working in school while I was first diagnosed with this disease, and it's brutal. It's not easy. I actually had to, while I was being diagnosed and trying to find a treatment, I actually had to leave a co-op to heal myself, to kind of be in an availability where I'm taking care of myself. And I guess that's tip number one: listen to your body, understand what your body is going through, and give yourself grace. It's not easy. Once I started being maintained, I guess, in working my post-college corporate life, I found that I was most successful in companies with flexibility, companies with managers that gave me the opportunity to go to your doctor's appointment, come back, and if you miss something, make it up. As long as the work's getting done, that's okay. I honestly do not believe that I'd be able to work in a corporate environment like I am currently. And I believe that I'm thriving and very successful in this corporate environment that I am working in. If this was in the 80s, and we were still in that really rigid structure where you have to be in the office, you have to be, 9 to 5, you have to be this. The flexibility that we have in today's corporate world is the only reason that I'm able to pursue my dreams in STEM. This is something that I have, said to many people in the past few. I got really sick, and I was lucky to have a manager that allowed me to take care of myself in the way that I needed to, while still getting my work done. And that was just wild to me that I was able to do that. I think ways to manage that is work with your manager and find accommodations that work best for you. Something that was really helpful for me is when I was getting sick, I was able to work from home when I needed to be in the office in the morning. And if I got too sick, go home, work from home for the rest of the day. Something else that I never thought that I would be able to do in a corporate workplace is I recently made the decision to have several surgeries to kind of fix this problem. So long-term, I'll be healthier. And, I was lucky to have the opportunity to take the time off that I needed while working, working on and off in between surgeries. Because the company knows that if I take the time now, I'll be able to work so much better for the next, however long I'm in this role. So it's recognizing that you have to make accommodations and pushing for it. You deserve to be able to work your job. Don't let anyone tell you that you're not, that, being disabled is something, you shouldn't work corporate life. Like, that's not true at all. Like, you can be disabled and do whatever you want.
Just specially able, right? You have special abilities.
I have special abilities.
Yeah, as other people do. I like the word that word more than disabled, I think. But I think you're right. When you say the word accommodations, I think this is another thing that is so much tied into inclusiveness and inclusivity, is that, I remember I recently joined a course, and then they said, they asked me in the form, like, do you need special accommodations? And I thought that was such a wonderful thing to ask. Like, I don't, but I felt like, oh, they're thinking ahead and beyond, and like above and beyond. And I look forward to, accommodating that, to including that into my own communication, is that what kind of accommodations do you need? Because I think at the end of the day, yes, we need to make numbers and we need to do all these things and all that stuff, but that's always going to be there. I mean, like, we'll always have goals, we'll always have business, we'll always have this, we'll always have that. And what really matters is that how accommodating we are to people and their needs, and then hopefully creating a work environment that is good for every, because if it is serving the most the most vulnerable minorities, then you can be assured that you are serving everybody else just fine. Like, if you are accommodating to those people that really need that accommodation, then you're already a workplace that's going to probably be more inclusive. So I think the word accommodation is like really nice to be used in corporate too, is that, maybe we should have those questions where we're asking an onboarding, hey, do you need a ramp? Like, do you need a basic, like, it's just a ramp. Like, you can't say somebody who's on a wheelchair can't do their work, right? So I feel like these are the kind of things that, yes, like you said at the beginning, it's not visible, so it's harder for people to believe. But I think we should believe everybody, because if we don't believe somebody, we should be sure that when we are in trouble, because anybody can get sick. I don't think people understand that. Anybody can get sick tomorrow. Anybody can end up having somebody in the family who is LGBTQ. Like, things are always changing. Your son, daughter can marry a minority. You can have grandkids who are, people of color. This whole realization that I'm not immune to the ever-changing world and I can be in that shoes. If we had that, I think we'll have empathy and we'll have all the accommodations, because yes, how would I like to be treated if I'm sick? That's the question.
Yeah, I think
I like to be treated with respect and with accommodations.
Yeah, it's like, all you want to do is be able to do your job. Like, that's it. Like, that's like my dream, is to the accommodations that my job gave me have allowed me to do my job when I didn't think that I was going to be able to, and that just blows my mind. I used to work for a company that pretty much, if you took time off, everyone would hate you, which was a really hard environment. As I use disabled for myself. That's the word that I use, and I'm comfortable with. There's a lot of power for me to identify as that. Pretty much it was just awful. And I actually had, when I was really struggling with my health at that job, I had a coworker come to me and physically say to me, "You're not disabled. Like, my life's disabled. Like, you need to get over it." And I'm like, "You don't know my life. Like, you don't know my body. Like, you want to take a ride? Like, I don't think you do."
No.
So
it's pretty disheartening, because again, same thing, right? If we don't have those cultures for people who need, if we don't have those accommodations for people who need it, then same thing, like, we treat pregnant women poorly too. Like, those are the workplaces that are toxic to pregnant women. And God forbid a guy has a knee surgery or a back surgery, and now, oh my goodness, he's so sick for like 24 weeks. They're gone, and like you can't see them. But then you're giving birth, and that's suddenly a problem, right? And
Yeah.
and so they are like copy pasting those biases across the board, right? If again you're not serving if you're not serving any of these minority groups, trust me, you're not a good employer at all. Like, you need to serve the people who need those accommodations the most, and you need to always have accommodations. Like, that they should always be an opportunity. I think COVID has given us that gift of working from home. Otherwise, I'm sure everybody would have struggled. We were still like, it would have taken another decade to make work from home like a normalcy. But I think COVID really helped accelerate those things for a lot of the minorities. And yes, women are more burdened. It's not probably a good thing, for mothers and other people. But at least we're open-minded now. Like, but that goes to show like how stuck we were. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like, why were we not visionary enough to see this? Like, that's what I'm, and including everybody, right? Like, this is not just a manufacturing industry or anybody. It's about all the big tech.
Oh yeah.
All these people who were like visionaries and futuristic. How come they didn't think about it? And it's just sad that we were never that visionary. But thank you for sharing that with us, and thank you for being so open and vulnerable, because again, that itself shows so much bravery and courage. It takes a lot to share your story, and always learning, always growing. And of course, we're all going to make mistakes, and if we do, then we just pick up and start again, and the work continues, right? So with that being said, what would be your advice for this program is for women, and I feel bad during Pride Month. This is another reason why I'm a little shy during Pride Month, is like, my show is called Her STEM Story, so it automatically excludes a lot of people that don't use those pronouns. However, it's a place where we all have conversations, and this is one of them. So tell us, for women or people who identify as women, tell us, how can we start believing in our brilliance, regardless of our health, regardless of, our other issues on the external side? What can we do to continue to believe in ourselves?
That is such like a broad question for advice. I think, you know what? Here it is. This is what it is. Find joy in everything that you do, and if you use that joy to power you through and you make that your motivator, I think for me, I finally realized that that's my biggest driver behind every single thing I do is joy. And you can explain that in different ways for different things that I do. But I would love to see more people trying to bring that into their lives, and finding joy in talking to others, finding joy in communicating, finding joy in being called out for being wrong and learning. Finding joy and overcoming small obstacles. Like, I don't know, when I could walk upstairs without, panting, it was like, hell yeah, like nailed it. So I think that's my biggest tip, is find joy in everything you do.
I love that. And that's you summarized it for life, right? It's a life lesson, not just for women or people, or it's for everybody, in STEM or beyond STEM. It's so universal. And I think two things come to mind. One, that's why I love Home Goods, and their logo, their slogan is joy of finding. I feel like that is such a mantra to live by, is that if you find something new, if you find your blind spot, if you find a new conversation, a new concept, be joyous about it. It's awesome. It's the joy of finding. Right? Oh, I didn't know that was a thing. And then the second one that comes to mind is, I just read somewhere, it said, happiness is a melodrama, right? Joy is essential.
I feel that.
Yeah, if you keep getting stuck in happiness, I'm sure you're going to be very sad. But if you operate from a place of joy, you can find it everywhere, because it's created inside of you at all times, and you can tap into it. And I'm so glad that you have that positive mindset as you're going through this season of your life, because you need that. And as I said, these are the skills you're picking up. I love challenges. And not that I hope this on anybody to go through struggles or challenges, but nobody goes on Oprah Winfrey show and talks about how perfect their life was, right? Like, it just doesn't happen. Like, you get to those stages, you get to those places in life. You write a memoir because you lived a life, you had experiences. You don't write memoirs just because you had the perfect life, you never failed, nothing bad happened. So it's a blessing. If you're going through it with that mindset, I'm sure you're going to come out of this even stronger and an even brighter and louder voice for all the people who need that voice. So with that being said, I think my last question would be, you are leading an ERG at your company. Tell us a little bit about that. And if there are people who are listening who want to do that as well at their organizations, what would be the path for them?
So this is something that I'm super excited about, that my company has given me the opportunity to do. So an ERG is an employee resource group that can gather a certain group of people together for education, for support, for mentorship, for a bunch of different things. So I have the opportunity to lead the LGBT ERG at my company, and I'm starting it from the ground up. The way that this got kicked off is I had it at other companies, and I was like, oh, I wonder if Prysmian has an LGBT ERG. So I reached out to HR, and they said no. And I said, well, I guess that's important to me. So can I be a part of starting it? And that really is what kicked it off. And I kid you not, like, seeing what that one question has kind of brought has been crazy. I mean, I asked one question, and we've had a LGBT panel that got talked about globally, about people sharing their experiences being queer in corporate. And now I get to build it from the ground up. So what's our mission? What's our purpose? I'm using HRC our Human Rights Council as a guide on how to start this. They have a lot of good workplace resources. It's a really good resource to check out if you're in an industry and kind of need help kind of understanding how to approach things. So I get to decide, like, what's our motto? What's our direction? What kind of programming do we want to do? What are our goals in the next 5 years? So I think if you're in the workplace and you're passionate about making change, this is a really great opportunity, even if it's just internal facing. You can make changes. I'm so excited. I'm going to evaluate policies and recommend changes to help different communities, help the trans community, help other. I'm really excited. There's a lot of opportunity that it's crazy to talk about.
That's awesome. I love that. And I think if industries can start seeing their talent as this multidimensional person who is more than the result they bring, who's more than the qualifications they have, and really start valuing them for who they really are and allowing them those, or not allowing, but creating those spaces for them to be their full self and actually advocate for things that they want to advocate for. I think we'll see a higher retention percentage. It's linked to so many things because millennials in general are not driven by money. They're not driven by a lot of titles. They're more so driven by purpose and that what is my contribution? What's my impact? And I'm glad that, the Prysmian Group is taking this initiative, and it's such a pleasure to see that change. Being in the company for so long, I myself, I'm really proud of where we are headed and all the wonderful things we're doing by actually giving people a voice. And yes, long way to go, but the good thing is we're not afraid to start. And I think that's where it all starts. Is like, okay, we're starting. And we're doing things differently every day. We're challenging ourselves, our leadership, our people to contribute and take up some of these initiatives, because it's more important to you than it is to me. And then when you do it, then you can take my allyship to do different things as well. So it is a little bit burden on minorities. I won't lie. Maybe we have to do certain things that, oh my God, I have to do this again and again, and I have to talk about my story again and again. But there's so much impact in that, right? Like, there's so much value in voicing your story, in sharing your story, and then using that to change your workplace. Who knows how many people you will help through this? Like, who knows how many people will feel better coming to work thinking, there's Caitlin I can talk to. I don't necessarily need to like hide everything. And that's just in itself is such a big impact. So thank you so much for your hard work on this.
Thank you, Prasha. It's been just my biggest dream to work on this project. So
I'm so happy for you. And before we let you go, I know you don't read as many books, but I have to ask this historical question that I ask every time. What is your favorite book?
Okay, so I actually have a good general answer for this right now. I'm a huge fantasy lover. I love fantasy and sci-fi. So my favorite author right now is N.K. Jemisin. If you like fantasy, run, don't walk to your nearest Kindle, to your nearest book area, and then pick up either 100,000 Kingdoms or the Broken Earth trilogy, which starts off with the 5th season. Two of my favorite books I've read in the past 10 years, and I read them last year. So she's a superstar, amazing person. I don't know, just magical writing abilities.
That's awesome. I love that. Again, thank you so much, Caitlin, for sharing all your stories and your struggles. I know it's not easy, and I know it takes a lot of courage, so I really appreciate that. Before we let you go, just tell us, where can our audience find you, your work, and follow your chronicles with you?
So you can find me on Instagram. My name on Instagram is just at Caitlin Hirschler. So I know that you'll be able to find it because I know my name will be somewhere where you can see. I post about everything. So if you're interested in keeping up with anything, all the queer journeys I do, my health journey, or my creative journey, that's where you'll find me. Also, I'm easy to contact on there. I'm very small. You can still just reach out to me and ask me any questions about anything. I'm probably one of the most open people out there. So
that's awesome. I love that. Thank you so much again for all your knowledge. Please share those links with us where people can make donations during Pride Month, where people can get involved, and we will share them in the links below. Because as you said, we need to take action, not just have a conversation, not just have a rainbow profile picture, but actually take action. And if the action is a conversation, that's okay too, but make sure that you are either sharing more about it with other people. Just do something that amplifies the voices of the LGBTQ plus community during June, but of course throughout the year. It shouldn't stop in June, right?
Exactly.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Caitlin. And that was Caitlin Hirschler with her amazing STEM story. And I am just so proud to have done this interview. And I wish Caitlin the best of luck, and happy Pride Month to everybody. Make sure you wear all your colorful outfits in June, but also after June as well. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you again next week. Bye.